ourselves in a digital space, I've started to advocate viewing our presence in the digital space sort of in 3 different levels. And I'll just show you a couple of slides and share a couple of comments on that with you. So here we go. Sharing a couple of slides. Hang on a sec. So building your persona in the digital space, in my view, is really interesting these years, because we are living in an age where the well-known physical space is being accompanied by a digital space that I would say even month by month grows stronger. So hardly anything more in our life, and I mean both professional and private lives, can be said to only have a presence in the physical space. Most things that we do also leave a footprint in the digital space. And as we, without thinking about it, just live our lives, we are constantly building our reputation and our personas in the physical space. And we are actually also doing the same thing in the digital space. This is not really about how to build a cool Facebook profile or how to have a cool Snapchat or Twitter profile. This is much more about how to inhabit the digital space as the persons, the humans that we are. So I do look at it in a more holistic way than viewing each individual social media profile as more or less important than the others. I think try and think about it as you as a human being building up your persona in the digital space. And this is why I think it does actually take some managing. It does take some strategic thinking in terms of how you go about building your persona. One thing is for sure, and I think I might just break off my slides as I say this. One thing is for sure, if you don't take care in terms of managing your digital persona, and if you're not active at all, and if only fragments of your persona exist there, then do not mistake this as having no presence in the digital space, because you will have, nearly regardless whatever you do, some form of presence in the digital space, but you will then leave it to chance, or even worse, perhaps leave it to others to sort of build up your digital presence. I had a student who last year, we had some really lively discussions outside our lectures because he wasn't really too happy about this the strength of the digital space, and he was feeling a bit stressed out about always walking around with a mobile phone. And I do certainly understand that and relate to that, but he also sort of made a point of not doing anything at all to maintain his professional profile digitally. And he then came to me, and this is why we started discussing this. He came to me, he was really sorry that when people Googled his name, only stuff that his friends had photos that his friend had been taking of him, maybe during parties or holidays, was mostly what dominated his digital presence. And he came to me and asked how he could remove all that stuff, because he was about to apply for some interesting media apprenticeships. And he was feeling kind of sorry that whenever people Googled him, it was sort of a small selection of not too unfortunate pictures, but still not something that he would wish as a professional profile that were to be seen. And I asked him, well, why don't you yourself start sharing? Why don't you make a nice public Facebook profile, and then maybe make a nice public Twitter profile? And again, our discussion sort of circled around this sort of wish to be anonymous in the digital space. So my point here and I apologize for my English here because it is a second language for me, but I hope I get my point across, that if you don't manage your digital persona yourself, you run the risk of having others to manage it for you, or even worse, maybe just chance. And it can actually hurt you, or at least you miss out on some opportunities in terms of having a sort of a clearly defined personal profile. So let me just find the slides here again and continue. So I'll just run through a couple of pointers here. So one thing you will gain by having a nice and open profile is the ability to connect. And as I did last night when I did this update, and 60 or 70 people just in a small way connected or reconnected with me. This ability to connect is professionally really, really important, and it is kind of difficult today, not being able to connect via your digital persona. Another thing, don't mistake this pointer here, the building of reputation. It doesn't take a large and active network, and it doesn't take a lot of popular updates from your side to build your reputation. Sharing content on social media profiles, content that is not necessarily very popular and not seen by many, still nevertheless stays on your profile. And when people visit your profile, also bear in mind that whatever you have shared so far is also part of your reputation building. So if you start slowly sharing stuff that you find interesting, professionally interesting, personally interesting, this adds to your online persona's reputation. So this is something that, in my view, is a sort of, it's good advice to get started doing that. And don't get stressed out if you don't immediately become a social media star or immediately become very popular on social media. You are slowly building reputation just by sharing. So that's quite important. And obviously also what you gain a platform for sharing your ideas, for sharing your projects, for sharing your ideas. And this in today's media environment is becoming, of course, more and more important. It is more and more important in media companies that employees also can contribute to the promotion of the most important ideas and contents that the media company is producing. On the minus side, I do think it's important also to mention some of the not so nice things about living in this digital space. It can lead to a bad work-life balance, a stressful work-life balance, where if you feel that you have to be someone that is not really in line with who you are, or if you feel that you need to be online all the time to manage your digital profiles in a manner that is not really sustainable in terms of your daily life, then it can be a very stressful thing. And I would really urge you to find your own balance there. I've done it myself. I mean, I should be sharing a whole lot more, but it's just not at the moment really very realistic for me. So on the bad side of this, it can lead to a stressful work-life balance. Also, obviously, it can lead to a loss of reputation, not a build-up of reputation. But I'm sure that you are aware that it's pretty easy to share something that will provoke someone. It might be something political or an unfortunate image or all kinds of stuff that some people in your network will see and really get angry about. Or it can be something that no one really notices it, but there might come a day where someone is Googling your profile, you might have applied for a job somewhere, and the person who is hiring you is visiting your social media profiles and just scrolling down month by month and looking at what you have been sharing. And that that situation, it can of course lead to a loss of reputation, or you can have a profile picture which might be a really strange profile picture, so people sort of get the wrong idea of who you are. So that's also very important to mention. And the third one here is, I'm sorry to say, getting worse these years. You can obviously become a target for anonymous harassment online on your profiles, and this is a problem that is it's gathering in strength, and it's a really a sad part of online life. And I won't go too much into detail here today, but I think it would be a mistake not to mention that also as a very real risk, especially if you work with projects, high-profile projects on subjects that really divide the public. There you can, especially even as a woman, you can become a target from harassment. So that's a very real and very serious problem. Anyway, on that pessimistic note, let's move on. I'd like to talk a little bit about profile pictures. So we're moving into sort of a more practical side of things, and I'll try and give you some advice around your profile pictures. Profile pictures are, of course, not the most important part of your profile, and it's not as if there is a sort of a fixed style that you must adhere to. You have a very free and wide range of possibilities when you choose your own profile pictures, but there are a couple of comments to add to it. So let me just show you a couple of profile pictures here. This is just a more or less random screenshot of a Danish journalist that I came across on Twitter. And I kind of liked her profile picture. This was a picture that I did a screenshot because I was gathering profile pictures of Danish journalists. And as you see here on my slide, I've just written, does she come, Tanya here, does she come across as a likable person? And since we're not in the room together and we can sort of really discuss this, let me just state that I think she comes across as likable. And when I've shown this picture in other lectures, most people tend to think that Tanya here comes across from her picture as a very likable person. So the next question that I usually ask here, does she also come across as a competent person? And I've used this picture in maybe, 25 lectures over the past year. And I would say 90% of those that I have asked really are in doubt. They don't know how to respond to my question, whether or not she's a competent person. A small percentage of people in the room, when I ask this question, clearly and specifically say, no, she is obviously not a competent person. And then I ask them, why not? And then it turns out that she states here in her Danish Twitter bio that she is a video journalist. And all those people who react negatively on her profile picture, they are photojournalists. And they most emphatically think that this is not a picture of a competent person because this table in the background sort of skewers or spears through her head here. So for a photographer, it does not come across as a competent person. So bear in mind to view your profile picture as others would view it and not just as you yourself think it comes across. So another question that I've been asking people is, does she come across as an influential journalist? And most people in the audience tend to say, no, not really. The photo is too relaxed to her to come across as an influential person. A minority of those that I've asked would say, that's kind of impossible to say. So it's not a coincidence that I have chosen these 3 words. There's a fun service. It's free and you can try it out. It's called Photofeeler. You can just Google it, photofeeler.com. And on Photofeeler, you can upload a profile picture. And I should notice that first you have to choose whether the profile picture is going to be used for a dating service or for professional use. And if you choose professional use, you can upload a photo and you can instantly get the community around Photofeeler their response on these 3 parameters: competency, likability, and whether or not the person comes across as influential. And as you can see, I hope you can see it on the slide here, that it's not too, and it gets sort of too unclear on the projector. But it's interesting to see this guy here with a sort of a kind of a strange profile picture. People rate his picture as very low on competency, whereas this profile picture over here, this guy in the gray suit, comes across as, or he's perceived as competent. And the same goes with the lower woman here, also perceived as both likable, competent, and influential. So Photofeeler is quite a handy tool to try out your profile pictures. And you can also you can distribute the URL to your photo and ask your own network whether or not to vote on your pictures. So a while ago, they put out a blog post, which I found quite interesting. On the basis of 60,000 ratings over the past couple of years, they've tried to put together sort of a list of do's and don'ts in terms of profile pictures. And one thing that scores negative on very clearly on all their these 60,000 ratings were distributed along 800 different profiles. And among those 800 different profiles, those of the profiles where people were wearing sunglasses consistently had a negative likability factor. And this is also something that we learn when we train people in as TV journalists, that if you are going to interview a person with sunglasses, then politely remove or ask the person to remove his or her sunglasses, because it comes across as arrogant on TV. So many people have choose a profile picture from maybe from a holiday setting, and they are wearing sunglasses. And this is something to bear in mind, and don't actually do that, at least if you want to come across as a likable person. So another one which I think is quite funny, and again, don't, I mean, this is not scientifically speaking something that you should by all means follow, but it's, again, take a hint from it and see if you can use some of it. It turns out that, generally speaking, when you look at people's eyes, sunglasses came across as something with a negative likability factor. The most positive overall way to position your eyes in your profile picture is by squinting. I don't know whether you have a similar word in German, but it's sort of sort of narrow eyes. This guy in the gray suit here, he is squinting. So it turns out that squinting comes across really positively, both on competency, likability, and influential factor. So another one, which I think was quite interesting, is that if you have a profile picture where you are really laughing, then the likability factor goes through the roof, but competency and influential is sort of close to zero. So perhaps consider having a profile picture where you are really laughing aloud, that is perhaps not the best thing to do. It turns out that smiling with your teeth visible is the best compromise. Let's see if there are a couple of others to mention. Well, it turns out, not surprisingly, that formal dress consistently over these 800 profiles made people rate them very high in terms of competency and also the influential factor. This is not surprising. All through human history, the way we dress sends out a very strong social signal, and also, of course, on your social media profiles. I'll just leave you with these slides and also a link to a blog post that goes through all these more sort of knowledge-based scientific factors behind the knowledge around the best profile pictures. So if you're interested in this, you can read that, but I'll just leave that with you, and then you can see if it's something for you to get inspired by. So by all means, don't go out and orchestrate sort of formula perfect profile pictures after listening to this talk. I really think that the human factor and our ability to perceive you as a human and as a likable person is the most important factor here. Anyway, something to consider for you. So I'll just quickly move on to a couple of other slides that I would like to share with you here today. This one here is more from a strategic point of view. As I said earlier, I do respect that not everyone shares sort of a strong wish to become a strong personality on social media. So I find it actually quite useful to think of your presence in social media in 3 different levels. One is what I call a basic presence, and the middle layer here is what I call a sort of a transparent way of operating in the digital space. People are able to see who you are and decode who you are and what you are about. And then there is the sort of the most hardcore version of them all, where you are really active on social media and where you have a plan and you are building reputation. The basic presence, I advocate that you have a safe and managed presentation of self, that you have a profile picture that at least does not give you a bad reputation in the eyes of others. It doesn't have to be a really perfect formal dressed profile picture, but at least a managed profile picture that doesn't sort of give you a sort of a negative reputation. And then also take care to go through your social media profiles, both on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and just go through your stream and look at your content with the eyes of others, with the eyes of maybe someone who's going to hire you, and just evaluate what's out there in your name, and is it all safe content. So this is what I advocate in the basic presence, and you don't actually have to have a voice. You don't, by that I mean, you don't have to actually actively every week share stuff on social media, but you do take care to have a nice presence in the digital space and not leave it to others or leave it to chance how you come across in the digital space. The next level, the transparent level, I advocate an open profile, also safe and managed presentation of self, but also an open profile where it's very easy for people to see who you are, what you're doing, and also sharing and updating generously. And by generously, I don't necessarily mean by quantity, but generously in terms of sharing what you are interested in and what you are currently doing, because it does actually have a larger value than you might think. because it enables others, other people, either professionally or personally, to relate to you, to find you, and to maybe do interesting stuff together with you in the digital space. So finally, building reputation. This is when you sort of follow a plan, where you really want to build or use social media as a supplement to how you are building your career. Maybe as Ross Dawson, consistently sharing interesting reads in terms of media innovation, and also your professor consistently sharing really innovative news around a certain specific topic. So this is sort of what I find some people mistake as being step number one, that you either are on social media and you are at the top level on the hierarchy here, or you're not on social media. And I think a more helpful approach, as I say, would be to allow yourself to find your own level in this hierarchy, and then sort of go slowly forwards from there, depending on what your own wish and what your interests are. All right. I just have a couple of more slides that I would like to share with you, and then we'll move on over to some more practical advice in terms of some of the social media channels. So a couple of slides around the ethical side of things. Let me just find them here. Share. There we go. So, working as media people, working as journalists, it is very important that you think about how you come across in social media. And you are, as a journalist, a kind of a VIP on the internet. And it will actually be noticed what you say and how you say it. Take this example here. It's actually some years back, as you can see on the date, 7 years ago, 2010. Hiroko here, she's the New York Times Japan correspondent, and 7 years back there was a rather not just one but a number of scandals surrounding the Japanese car maker Toyota, and she was covering that story. It was a big international ongoing story, and she sent out on her this tweet on her personal Twitter account that at some point the 80-year-old CEO of Toyota announced that there would be a very rare live press event that she, of course, was going to cover. So this meant that she had to, as she states here, take the train, the Shinkansen, to this press conference, and just saying here, "We love you, Mr. Toyota." This was his name. And then after the press conference, she was kind of disappointed, and she wrote this. This landed her in trouble on the New York Times, because her editors were really not very happy about this. So she wrote this on her personal Twitter account. "Akita Toyoda took very few questions." This was the CEO of Toyota. "Ignored reporters, including me, who tried to ask a follow-up. I'm sorry, but Toyota sucks." So this was perhaps a bit unfortunate. I can certainly relate to a reporter's frustration that the press conference was a sort of a frustrating event where they had all kinds of questions and had hoped finally to get to ask these questions. But then he just read a statement and took no questions. And they were probably, all the journalists present, very disappointed and frustrated about that. But her editors at the New York Times actually considered, because there were some reader complaints after reading this, removing her from this big international story altogether, because it could be stated that she was biased against Toyota. And it's just an example of how, as a journalist, you cannot write just whatever you like on your personal social media profiles, because it will be interpreted in relation to your role as an impartial journalist. She was not taken from the story. At the end, the editor at the New York Times wrote a blog post where they were very public about having an internal discussion here. But he said that after evaluating her journalistic output on this story, it was his opinion that she came across as very professional, and that they would try and not use words like this on social media profiles going forward. But it did actually lead to a new policy internally in New York Times. So another example here of a radio host in Australia who was actually, he lost his job over this Twitter rant. I'll just try and read it out to you. This is a reader in Australia saying around a specific event, a Veterans Day in Australia, a reader on Twitter saying to a radio host, "Just hope that as we remember servicemen and women today, we remember the Australia they fought for wasn't gay marriage and Islamic." So this is some angry guy who is stating that on a Veterans Day, he feels that current modern day Australia is too dominated by gay marriage and all kinds of Islamic influences. And the radio host on his personal Twitter account says to this listener, "Fuck you, Jim Wallace, you ignorant prick. The Australia they fought for was for everyone. That's what makes our nation great, turd." So very strong language here. And this is the reader here again, or the radio listener. "Okay, you're right. My apologies. This was the wrong context to raise these issues. Anzacs, that's the Veterans Day, mean too much to me to demean this day, not intended." So kind of a polemic answer. And the radio host finishes off by saying, "That's a lame apology. Here's an idea. Try not being a cunt every day of the year, would you?" So this all took place in his personal Twitter account, but the result was that he lost his job on account of something that he wrote on his personal Twitter account. So I'm just mentioning this. Maybe perhaps it doesn't feel too relevant for you as students, but again, your social media personal profiles are global media channels with a very strong reach. So it doesn't really take much for any kind of update or image that you put on your own profiles to suddenly go viral if it angers the right or the wrong people. So just bear in mind that view your own personal media profiles also as these strong media channels that they also are. And it is a kind of a new strange area that we are operating in, because social media channels feels to us as something very personal, and we treat them as something very personal. But in an instant, it can become a global channel that will sort of outrage or anger other people. So take care out there as well. All right. So I thought that we should finish off by me just going through a couple of practical tips on your social media profiles. And I'm going to focus mostly on Facebook, because setting up a profile on Twitter is fairly easy. Write a nice Twitter bio and put in a nice profile picture and maybe even a header, and then share 4 or 5 or 6 tweets. Force yourself to it, even if you're not active on Twitter, but you would like to have a profile on Twitter in order to be able to do research or listen to others on Twitter. Just force yourself, even if it doesn't come natural, to post a handful of tweets around an interest area that you yourself find interesting, because it will add to your reputation, it will add to your profile, that your profile is not completely empty. So there's not a whole lot more to be said about a Twitter profile. I'll try and concentrate on Facebook, which is a bit more complicated actually. Let's just dive into that. Hang on a sec, let me share my screen again. Here we go. I think here we are. Yeah, Facebook. So when you decide to make your Facebook profile public or semi-public, there are a couple of settings that I recommend that you visit. And one is called, I just go into my settings here, and I hope you can relate to it in English. One here is called, let's see where they've hidden it. Public posts, that's the one I'm looking for. So there's a setting, choose setting, I don't know what it is in German, and choose public posts. And then if you change this setting here from friends to public, then you activate the ability for others to follow your profile. Then you can start writing public posts like this, hello world, and choose the target group public and post it. And then people who have chosen to follow your profile will be able to follow your public posts, but they will not be able to see what you share with your friends. So this is quite a nice way to have a public voice, but to still be able to use Facebook just with friends and in a more private manner as well. So turning on that is, I find quite useful. I'll just show you here. I'm clicking this question mark here, and I'm clicking into privacy shortcuts, who can see my stuff, and what do other people see on my timeline. Maybe you know of this functionality, but this is a really nice functionality to start off if you want to go through your profile and view whether it's safe for the public to see, whether there's something that needs to be hidden for the public. If you go into that setting, question mark, privacy shortcuts, and who can see my stuff, then this is what your profile looks like to the public. Then I can view my own profile as it will look to the public. So I can see, can they see who my friends are? And if I go into my photos, what can they see all my private photos and stuff like that? And because I have activated this follow button on my profile, this is where I can see that the button is actually there on my profile, so other people can follow me. So this is usually something that I advocate when people start using Facebook. If you're not interested in letting the whole world see who your friends are, and I use this just as an example, because Facebook has really actually a nice functionality in terms of managing the visibility of all your private stuff. So I'm just going into my friends here. Let's just kill off this functionality here, and I'll go into my friends setting, click the manage, edit privacy, and then here I can determine whether my friend list should be public or only visible to my friends, or I can choose custom and then choose a specific group of people who will then become the only people able to see who my friends are. And these specific settings you can use in all kinds of areas of your personal profile, also the about section. Why not I mean, many people don't really have anything in here in the About section. I have started viewing it more or less like a sort of a LinkedIn profile. So in the About section, people can see my work in education, where I've lived, and contact and basic info. But they can't, however, see all my family relations. So, for instance, Helene here, my daughter, in the About section, family and relationships, if I click this small gear wheel here, you can see here I'm able to specify whether or not it should be visible to the public that Helena and I are related, or just my friends, or a custom group, small group of people. So this is something that you can determine, and you can go through your profile and then make your own choices in terms of what you prefer people to see or not to see. I really recommend also that you put in these 101 characters in your intro section, and also maybe specify or choose, handpick a couple of pictures in this featured images section. If you don't do it, Facebook will just choose some random images from your feed. Could be good enough, but it might be that you have an interest in picking some featured images to go with your Facebook profile. So another question that I very often get around Facebook is whether or not to maybe create a Facebook page for your professional use, personal professional use of Facebook, or maybe even create a professional profile on Facebook, so as to be able to have your sort of your personal space privately on Facebook with all your friends, and then have a more professional outward-looking profile. So sort of a profile number 2 on Facebook. Many journalists in Denmark have chosen this solution, and I'm working hard to stop this practice, because I really think it's bad advice. First of all, it's a breach of Facebook's terms of service. You are actually, as a user, only allowed to have one profile. When you sign up for an account on Facebook and you click yes, I have read the terms of service, no one reads them, but it does actually say there that you are only allowed one profile. And they have automated tools looking for people with double profiles. And I know of several, personally, I know of several journalists in Denmark who have created a personal profile for work purposes, and then keep their private life on Facebook on another profile. I know of several journalists who, over the past couple of years, have experienced that Facebook has, from without warning, converted one of their profiles to a Facebook page. So, and then all this effort that they have put into their professional persona is wasted instantly, and you can't do anything about it. So, and one last reason not to do it is that it is really a hassle to be yourself in 2 versions. I don't actually know anyone practicing that who are really happy about the solution, because it gets kind of confusing. Sometimes you actually are proud of something that you are doing in your professional life, and you would really like your personal friends also to see it, or maybe to take part in it, or to comment on it. And then you would have to post it on both profiles, and that's it's all in all just, in my view, a really bad solution. So my advice is to go through your personal profile and sort of sanitize it for public viewing by choosing this function. This is what my profile looks like as a public person, and then finding all the stuff that you don't really want the public to see, make it more private, maybe only visible for friends, or even visible for a smaller group than friends. And this is something that I also just need to show you and share with you. So let's just go back to the Facebook profile here. Here we are. Share. Oops. So basic functionality on Facebook, you'll find it down here. Go to facebook.com and go down to friend lists. And here you will find, mostly you will find some auto-created lists that you should view as target groups, or groups that Facebook automatically think that you would like to be part of. And you can just basically ignore those. I find them personally quite annoying. But I have a couple of lists here. This one, for instance, that I have created myself. And it works like this. When you press create list, you can give your list a name. Work people like this. And then you can just start by writing the names of your friends. And you can add these friends to this list. This guy here, and I'll just add one more like this and create. And what I've created now is a friend list, and it serves two purposes. When I visit my friend list, newly created, called Work People, I have a really nice feed here of everything that they have posted. So this gives me the opportunity to actually follow them really closely. So if you have a group of people that you would like to network with, and you would like not to have Facebook's algorithm decide whether or not you should see their updates, then you can actually add them to a list, and you have the opportunity to visit that list frequently to see and keep an eye on everything that these persons actually are sharing. Because otherwise you will only see maybe 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 posts, because it will be excluded by the Facebook's algorithm. So this is one use of a Facebook friends list. Another use is if you go to your profile and you go to your about section, and let's see, I go to my contact and basic info section, and my phone number, I can go in here and I can edit, and I can choose a target group for the people who are allowed to see my phone number. And I can choose my manually customized created friend list, and I can choose Work People as a target group now for those who are able to see my phone number. Save changes. So from now on Facebook, it is only those 4 people who I have included in my work people list. Let me just quickly remove that again and take it back to public, save changes. But you get my point, I hope, that you can actually very specifically determine and decide for yourself who would be able to see what on Facebook. And another really nice thing about these friends lists is that you can write something, hello world, either only to those people, more, let's see here, see all, that Work People. So now when I do this post, only those 4 people on Facebook will be able to see that post. And if they share my post here to their friends, no one else will be able to see it. It really works quite nicely. That you can work with a closed space, a closed group of people like that. I wouldn't actually recommend using it like this, posting regularly to very few people. But I think it would maybe make more sense to sometimes post to friends, except a list of professional acquaintances. So I hope you see what I'm doing here. So now I'm posting this update here, which, let's say it's a private update. Hello friends, or maybe some photos that are fairly private. So I'm posting them to my friends, except the list that I call Work People, because they are perhaps more professional relations, just as an example here. So Facebook, I think, actually quite nicely allows you to work with Facebook not just privately, but also really nicely in a professional manner. So let me just add here towards the end that what I just showed you about making a list is, in my view, essential for really getting personal value out of connecting with other like-minded on social media. Because when you put people on lists, same goes for Twitter. When you put people on lists, also on Facebook, as I said, you will then be able to follow them more closely, and you will. This gives you the opportunity to like what they are sharing, or to reshare it, or to comment on it. And this is kind of not a digital space phenomenon. This is just a regular human phenomenon, to see and to listen to what people that you care about are saying. Your network online only truly comes to life when you also sort of make a plan for how you yourself are able to listen to what your network also are doing. Because if you are the kind of person online who never listens but only talks, then you're not that much fun to be friends with. So lists are a really nice tool to improve your own ability to actually see and hear what the most important people are doing out there. Otherwise, the automatic algorithms will unfortunately not show you maybe only a tenth of what those people who truly really matter to you are doing. I hope that, in spite of my not too perfect English, this last point here came across, because it is really very important. Anyway, a lot of talk from my side, and the hour is already up. This is what I more or less had prepared for you here today. I really hope that you are able to use some of it, and remember that you can replay the webinar if some of the pointers went by a bit too fast here. Anyway, this is I guess it. Time is up, Elizabeth.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks for taking time. Thanks for sharing your experience and knowledge. And I hope to talk soon again.
Yeah. We must make an appointment for catching up. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's
Anything you would like to ask right now? Is there a question? No. So I will spend some time with questions, maybe.
Yeah.
So bye for now.
Okay. Bye. Have a nice day, all. Yeah.
Same to you.
Okay.
Talk soon. Bye.